So this is the new DJI Neo, and frankly, this thing is...
2, 1.
It's pretty insane. Well, I'm glad that will make it into the intro. It has some flaws. Let's talk about that. Okay, let's be honest, that was more user error than anything else, but it does kind of point to a couple of big things that this has. One is, of course, its propeller guard. No. That could have been bad. The propeller guards. So yeah, these propellers are a godsend, and honestly that was a great demonstration for why these things are so good. Crashing into the camera and then it did it again, right, which felt like a bit of a vengeance, especially considering I'm filming on a DJI as we speak. But it truly does make a difference to just how capable and easy this thing is to fly. But it also points at a new feature that this has, which is of course the obstacle avoidance. If you had the DJI Neo before, you would know that you would be pretty worried flying this thing around because it had zero obstacle avoidance, but now it does. In fact, it's actually got quite a few systems, but one major thing, which obviously didn't help save it in this instance. So you have a camera up at the top, you have a camera at the bottom, you've got 2 infrared sensors down the bottom, and you've even got a LiDAR sensor here at the front. Of course, there's nothing at the sides. So when I use the new gesture controls to turn this drone, well, it couldn't avoid that crash. But honestly, the new omnidirectional vision system, except for on the sides of course, genuinely has made such a difference to me actually wanting to use this more often. When we're filming a car review, for example, there are trees absolutely everywhere, and there's no way I would trust the Neo before to actually follow the car without getting stuck inside of a tree. At least now it has a fighting chance. Unless, of course, you decide to hit that tree sideways.
A few moments later.
All right, that was a crash, but hey, it's literally no worse for wear.
Unscathed.
Thanks, propeller guards, but no thank you, omnidirectional sensing.
I think we must have been going sideways.
But thankfully, if you do hit that poor tree or that poor camera, well, this thing is still incredibly light. It weighs about 16 grams more than the Neo before. DJI are claiming it's 151 grams. Once you put on this transmitter at the back and maybe the propeller guards, you're kind of getting up to 160 grams, but still immensely light for what is a very capable drone. It is also a little bit bigger, but the propeller guards have been redesigned, and frankly, the whole thing, it really is very palmable, and that is a massive thing because it means even inside, please don't crash.
2, 1.
Oh, very good. It means that even when you are in... No. It means that it is actually very palmable and you can make use of the gesture controls. How easy was that? It's okay, it's just a drone. So yes, don't worry if you are after something that's small, compact, and frankly, you could fit in a lot of pockets. Will it pass the gene test? Well, definitely this is your go-to companion, frankly, especially if you're doing something like hiking or you're out in the bush and you actually don't want to take your controller with you, for example. Yeah, you can just take this, a battery, and you're good to go. There's a few other major design changes. So one, you're going to notice this is a transmitter, and you only get that as an optional accessory or as part of the Fly More combo. We'll come back to price in a second because prices have definitely gone up for this, but you want this, and you want this so you can use it with things like your controller, because otherwise you are limited to just Wi-Fi. Although Wi-Fi has also been improved for this thing. Wi-Fi transfer speeds, for example, have gone from 25 megabytes per second, which was pretty slow, up to 80 megabytes per second. And it does mean you get a little bit more range, but it's still very much within line of sight. You can't fly this thing much further. Although for this drone, I don't think that's really the point. The other major design change for this is this screen up here at the front, and this is massive. It really really does mean you don't even need your phone to control this. It can literally be used with just one hand. You have buttons here on the side that allow you to change between the different modes. And by the way, there are new modes like the Hitchcock effect, which is very, very cool. If you're into filmmaking, then you're gonna really appreciate that one. But then of course you have your record button here. You literally just press that once, it'll fly out of your hand. You can control it with gestures and then land back on your hand just by holding your palm out. It is a really impressive system. And by the way, if you have connected this transmitter and you're using a remote control, this thing has about 10 kilometers of range, which on paper is actually very, very impressive. The only thing is, you're probably not going to be flying 10 kilometers away because this thing does have a bigger battery now, but it still is only 19 minutes of flight time, which is 1 minute more than the Neo before because now it has cameras and sensors and LiDAR and screens. So in real world terms, you're really only getting like 13 to 15 minutes max of flight time. And if it's a windy day, it could be as low as 10 minutes. So it's not gonna blow you away. But to get this kind of form factor, you can't have a huge battery. It just wouldn't work. But also back to these motors, even though they are absolutely tiny, these little electric motors, DJI claim that this is now 50% faster. And you notice that it goes from 8 meters a second to 12 meters a second when you're in sport mode. And that is very, very fast for what is a tiny little drone. Is it enough to like chase a car? Well, only if you're going quite slow in that car, clearly. So will I be pulling this out every time we film a car review? Well, the ease of use, maybe, but to follow the car, it could actually get kind of dangerous if you're on a public road. But still, for following you around or even riding a bike, whatever, this is so much better for it. And again, you have to remember, this is the entry-level drone for DJI. They want this to be the cheapest, the most accessible. And so you're not going to be getting all the crazy cool features that you'd be getting on like the Mini 5 Pro, for example, but they still are able to pack more into this. For example, the camera is now dual axis stabilized. Before it was a single axis, but now it's got dual axis stabilization. Sure, would it be better if it had three-way axis stabilization? Absolutely. The electronic image stabilization in this thing is actually still quite decent, but you might notice that under really extreme wind conditions, yeah, this thing is going to have maybe slightly shaky or slightly warped footage, but it is actually more wind resistant now as well. So it's gone from level 4 to level 5, and that does mean that you can fly it in more conditions. And where we film our car reviews, it is always windy, it's by the bay, this thing is able to hold up surprisingly well. Of course, at the expense of battery life. Now, I know a lot of you have been quite disappointed by the fact that the sensor in this is actually the same as before. It's a 1/2-inch CMOS sensor, and absolutely the image quality is just okay. It's not gonna win any awards. It can film now up to 4K 60 FPS, and to accommodate all this extra horsepower, well, they've increased the internal storage. It's gone from 22 gigabytes in the Neo before, which was just not good, up to 49 gigabytes. Also, I know that DJI need to differentiate this by not having any sort of expandable storage, but really that would be quite useful. For such a small sensor that really isn't capturing all that much data, it means that you'll get a claimed 105 minutes of 4K 60 FPS beautiful footage, at least as beautiful as this sensor is able to manage. Of course, it's not always just about the sensor, it's also about the lens, and the lens has improved on this. It's now gone from an f2.8 to an f2.2, so now you're getting way more light into the sensor, and frankly, the image just looks better. And one of the trade secrets of YouTubers is a lot of footage is actually filmed on iPhone, for example, and it's not because they have the best sensors out there, but it's because they have such good software processing, and it's the same with this. No, it doesn't look absolutely incredible, but frankly, even for our audience at CarSauce, seeing a drone shot from this, for most people, isn't going to be noticeably different from seeing it shot on the Mini 5 Pro, because once you're watching it through YouTube, for example, it's already compressed. And frankly, for me, the ease of just being able to pull this out and film with it makes it so much better. And also, by the way, if you want to film over water, for example, it can actually handle doing that now, because a lot of Neos were lost over water where, well, this thing just completely failed and would land in the sea for whatever reason. It hopefully won't do that now. At least that's what DJI claim. Also, a big change for this if you want to film social videos is when you're filming in vertical aspect ratios, you're not just stuck at 1080p anymore. You can actually shoot at 2.7K, which is just more flexible. And so to sum up the camera experience, frankly, it's the whole ease of access of this that makes it so damn good. No, the quality is not as good as its bigger brothers within the range, but frankly, even for our videos, I found it to be very, very useful and just so much easier to bring along, set up, and use, even if it doesn't fly in the sky for all that long. So what about price? Well, prices have actually gone up relatively significantly. The Neo 2 now starts at 409 Australian dollars, and that is for the drone only. It doesn't come with the transmitter, and you get one battery. For a lot of people, that's actually fine, and I think for its intended purpose, if you're just using this to follow you around, climbing up a mountain, for example, well, that's gonna be enough for a lot of people. But like I said, with this battery life, you probably want more. And that also makes this thing $110 more expensive than before, so it's about a 30% price increase. Really, the one I recommend is the Fly More combo, but again, it really isn't all that cheap, especially if you want it with the controller, because that is now 709 Australian dollars, which is about $170 more than before. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, wow, that is massive price increases, and you aren't wrong, but frankly, it is still extremely affordable for a drone, and it's added the features that were desperately needed. Frankly, the lack of omnidirectional sensing meant that this thing would be crashing way more often, and even with propeller guards, that could still damage the camera, for example. The screen now makes it so much easier to use it in one-hand operation, and the fact that you can now use it as a one-hander, well, that is massive. It does mean that for a lot of people, you don't need the remote, you don't need to carry that around, you simply just need a drone and maybe 2 batteries. So yeah, I'm super duper impressed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you gonna be rushing out to buy the new DJI Neo 2? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Of course, if you did enjoy the video, please do leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel as well. We'd love to have you around, and share it with a friend. That also helps too. Honestly, DJI, I'm pretty impressed, even if I did bin it in the first clip. Ciao for now.